I owe an Uber driver a sincere apology. About
Uh-oh.
4 years ago, my car was getting fixed. That I was in an Uber on the way to work, which is hell. No matter what way you look at it.
Like traffic, you mean, or the Uber
Yes.
experience?
No, I was in the Uber in traffic because when you drive here, there's traffic.
Yeah.
And on the way here, he wanted to get off on the Don Mills exit as a little get around.
No, you cannot do it.
No, you're wrong.
No, I'm not.
I told him, I said, sir, if you get off there, we're going to have a problem. You got to just gut it out and stay on this highway, the DVP.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, I'm telling you, if you get off at Don Mills, it'll save you 10 to 15 every day. I did it today, and he was right.
So what's your move? You go to like Vic Park and up to the 401, or
No,
you
you
got to
could-
express. Now you've revealed it though to the city, and now people can start.
This is the
making a
move.
now.
DVP North, Don Mills North to, what's the one right near the highway? York Mills.
York Mills.
And
But
it's,
York Mills ends though at a certain point. It starts
no,
going south
that's
a
the
little
play. The bottom line is, I thought he was crazy.
Okay,
but it is
listen,
the move. Why? Your time in Toronto, you always thought that was a bad move?
Well, you see it on the maps. And Noodles, you're a big map guy.
Yep.
I'm sure you've seen it as well.
Big
you will
time.
see at times that will come up as an option to save 3 minutes, 4 minutes. The problem is you get into a scenario where the lights come into play. And another thing with Don Mills is you're in the Eglinton atmosphere in universe. And if you're anywhere
What
close
does
to that
that mean?
street, it's the worst street in North America because they've been working on that stupid LRT for a decade. It's never going to be prepared. I saw a video they posted of one of Noodle's people movers going down Eglinton as if it was some big accomplishment. Empty, nobody in it, not in service, and they're like, here we go. They're teasing the LRT. They've been teasing it for a decade. And
I've lived here.
I'm telling you, man, I wouldn't do it. I stay on the highways. I know it's tough to commit to that, but I think you got to stay unless you have a construction or like a crash. But if it's just regular traffic, because I had that experience last night. I was coming home from
By
downtown
the way, let
last
me
night.
interrupt you. It is not regular traffic. This is like when you get up close to anywhere, it's stopped dead on
Yes,
the DVP.
and I understand. And they've been doing some construction around the 401, and they've been taking lanes out. I don't think you can get onto the collector off the 401, off the DVP onto the 401 East. But I was on the Parkway last night at 11:30, stopped. 11:30 p.m.
God.
And I was parked on the Don Valley Parkway on a Tuesday, Noodles. Tuesday at
know.
11:30 p.m. I'm like, what is happening? What is going? Tiff's downstairs or downtown. The Jays game ended an hour and a half ago. What is happening right now?
That would drive me bonkers.
Absurd.
I've lived here now. This is my 14th year in Toronto. That LRT or whatever you call it, the
Yep.
people mover, that's been around since I was kicking around.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go to Young and Egg, you start driving.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
All it is construction. And I get it. Like I felt like when you go to Boston, it took forever for them to finish those underground tunnels
The
or
big
whatever.
dig. The big
The
dig
big
in
dig.
Boston.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing. I feel like Toronto is constantly in a state of construction. Problem is they can't it's growing so fast they can't handle the infrastructure. It's just there's traffic everywhere. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me 11:30 at night on a Tuesday.
What was
It's
crazy
ridiculous.
is I flew downtown. I was downtown in like 25 minutes last night, and it was amazing downtown. It was a beautiful night. All the patios were rocking. A Tuesday night, it was electric. Like it was electric. It's just an amazing downtown core, especially during TIFF. You still get the weather. Schools are in. U of T's back. You know, Toronto Metro or whatever it's called is back. Like there's a lot of people that are kind of buzzing downtown, but no traffic down, but parked at 11:30 on a Tuesday night going north. And maybe that's what I needed. Get on Don Mills. All right, I'll take it into consideration.
When you get log jams at 11:30 p.m.,
It's
you're just
so
like,
ridiculous.
This is a little much.
It's really uncalled for. But you know what they might have been doing was parting the seas for Yanni Hakanpää, because Yanni has officially become a Maple Leaf. They've signed him to a 1-year deal worth $1.4 million. So something went awry for Yanni Hakanpää, because on July 1st, I believe it was a 2-year deal at $3 million per, and then the Leafs, I'm assuming, said, wait a minute, this isn't going to work for us. Like, we can't give you that kind of number. And it's 1.470. I wonder if that's the exact number that you can bury in the minors without accounting against your cap. Look that up, Doogie, what the exact number is for burying a contract. Not that I'm anticipating that will happen, but this is effectively almost a PTO. Like, it's a flyer for Yanni Hakanpää.
And a bizarre scenario where it was like, what happened from It was like another big defenseman. And who the hell knows what went on with that guy, whether it was a physical or something. But he's back in the fold, and their roster is taking shape. But they probably got to make a transaction here or something to fit these guys in. Because the thing with Pacioretty is it's a PTO, but every insider, everybody associated with him saying he's basically going to be
I think his agent tweeted out that he will be signing before the season starts. Like his agent is, what's his name? He's
Alan Walsh.
Alan Walsh. Yes. And Alan Walsh, I believe, quote tweeted the PTO announcement with, actually, he'll be signing before the season begins.
But what happens if he steps on the ice and he's awful? Like, where does that little agreement go to if you're looking at him? You're like, wow.
I wonder how the Leafs and the league would feel about that, too. Like, what's the point of, obviously you've done the PTO because you probably do have a cap issue here, and there is a belief that the Leafs are trying to move some pieces around. I can't imagine the Leafs are going to move a piece that they like for Max Pacioretty. Like, that makes no sense to me. And the names that were people are throwing out, like, do they move off Yarncroke? Do they move off David Kampf? And if they're moving off them, it's because they don't believe in the value of those contracts and they don't believe those players can supply that. But there's no way you're moving a guy that you believe in or you like for Max Pacioretty at 35 on a PTO.
Similar situation happened last year. If you remember, Noah Gregor was on a PTO, expected to sign Sam Lafferty out the door, and Noah Gregor signed.
And it was a stupid play. And now Lafferty by the end of the year faded. But he had an unbelievable start. And it was a silly trade. It was a silly play to take Noah Gregor over Sam Lafferty.
Well, there's money involved,
of course, but still, it was not a good trade in retrospect.
I still think this might be a Netflix special, this Hakanpää thing. I want to know the backstory of this because we were all sitting there July 1st, and it was 2 years, 1.5. Hey, they got a 6'7" defenseman. And what is it, September 11th? And it's a 1-year deal, and this guy's been missing. Like, I don't know what the deal is. And as far as the Pacioretty thing, I still think it's a low-impact signing if they do. I mean, this guy's going to be – it's going to be $850, it's going to be $875, whatever the league minimum is. And, yeah, they move a body out, but it's not going to be Yarncroke or Camp. It'll be somebody on the edges
like Connor Timmins or so. It doesn't matter who it is, but probably someone with a lower cap hit. I hear you. But it's also, it opens the door. Like if Pacioretty's got a spot, like if this is a PTO wink, but it's actually a deal, what does that do for Nick Robertson? What does that say to Easton Cowan? Rookie camp starting today. Like I'm really in the camp. I want to see Easton Cowan play. I want to see him as a Maple Leaf. I am a full-blown booster. It's been quite a while since I jumped on that bandwagon. Nazem Kadri was my guy. Mitch Marner was my guy. I was like, I'm a huge Kadri Marner. There's something about the London Knights. Sign me up. Dale Hunter, shout out. I'm a believer in this kid, and I want to see him make the team because I think it would be just an incredibly fresh story. That's not why you obviously have him on the team, and it's up to the Leafs to make that determination, and it's up to him to show up at the camp with the right attitude and play well and prove that he's ready. But if he does prove that he's ready and he can play, he better be here.
And it's also
you better find a spot for him
in the National Hockey League where you draft a guy in the first round in the NHL and he turns out to be good and he plays for the team.
Right. 2 years later, he's like, hey, I'm ready to play. I was the best player in the Canadian Hockey League last year by a pretty substantial margin. Put me in, coach. I'm pulling for the kid. I want to see it happen, and I just wonder how they're going to jockey this stuff around. And, Pacioretty comes in, and he kind of follows suit for other guys that they've brought in, veteran guys who haven't won either, like Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau, Jason Spezza, Mark Giordano, Max Pacioretty. Like, it's a kind of a consistent theme with the Leafs. Like, get them on the cheap, bring them in, and they're going to try to win for the first time in Toronto and rely on the core that's already here to help them achieve that.
I think what Brad Treliving's done is given Craig Berube a bunch of options here and said, tell me who you like and tell me who you want to play opening night for you. And there is some healthy competition. We'll have to go through the roster and that, but there's going to be some healthy competition here. Pacioretty's in the mix, whether we, think he's long in the tooth or not. This guy's played in the league. He's a veteran guy. That left side we keep talking about. Easton Cowan's in the mix. He has to be. To your point, Brian, this guy was fantastic. And, you were pushing for him yesterday, too. Like, this guy was unbelievable in junior. Let's see if he can translate it to the National Hockey League. But these are storylines that you're going to track. This isn't just about, hey, let's get Matthews ready and, let's see what Tavares looks like a year later. Like, I'm curious to see Mitch Marner. I am. I heard he's up in Colorado training. You're hearing all sorts of different stories, right, of what guys have been up to. I don't think Ryan Reeves starts the season on the right side. Maybe there's extra body there. What did they do with him last year? Right?
It is possible. There certainly will be competition. You're right about, I don't know if he was in Colorado or out in Halifax or whatever. He was training with McKinnon. And Nathan McKinnon was speaking on it yesterday saying, hey, like everyone knows what happens in Toronto. It's amazing. Everyone's aware of what everyone's saying in Toronto because Nate was like, yeah, Marner's taking a lot of flack.
I don't understand.
I feel for the guys in Toronto that have to deal with all that. Like, do you realize that this team hasn't won a cup in almost 60 years, and this team's won one round in 20? What do you think the reaction's going to be? What do you think people are going to say in the city of Toronto, the biggest hockey market on earth? I feel for that guy. What do you want people to do? You tell me, Nate. How do you want people to react to another season ending in the same fashion? Yeah. And the same performance again in the playoffs.
Him and the other guys have been going to their mailbox every July 1st and picking out $11 million out of the mailbox. Just, I don't know what bonus money. Mm-hmm. They've just been treated like gods. And yet they can't get by the first round, and everybody in Toronto is just so hard on them. I just don't.
I don't get why McKinnon would like. I get he's sticking up for his guy, and I guess players stick up for players. That's what they care about. Like that's what they care about is the players.
By the way, he brought up a point that is fact. He's one of the best players in the league. That's true. It still doesn't take away from the fact that they don't win.
But if you're one of the best players in the world, then you should have high expectations to actually do something in the playoffs. Like that's you can't have it both ways. You can't have it, I want to be a top 10 paid player. I want to be considered one of the best. I am one of the best. But in the playoffs, I just leave. And he's not alone. Matthews is the exact same, and Willie's the exact same. I think what's interesting here, again, with Matthews getting this captaincy, like he steps in front where he should have been the whole time. Like he has actually been very lucky. They all have to have the shield of the core four. Like it's always the core four, as opposed to individually. And like when you look in Colorado, they have great players. Nate McKinnon was at the forefront. It wasn't, hey, Rantanen, you speak first, and then Nate can talk on it. Or, hey, Landeskog, I know you're the guy. It's like that guy's the best player. That guy's got to do it. He's got to be the man. And Cale Makar probably can put his hand up and say, I'm right there with him. But same thing in Edmonton. Like, no one's like, hey, Nuge, you've been here for a long time. Why didn't you step up? It's like, 97 has to do it. He's the man. And then secondarily, it's Draisaitl. And up here, I think the players have been actually very lucky because they've kind of all put up a collective shield as core four, as opposed to individually looking at guys, and Matthews in particular, because he's the best of the bunch.
And Aaron Krolnick brought up a good point. I saw one of his clips where I think he was taking heat, him and Carlo, where all we do is harp on the amount of money and cap space that these guys take up. It's not that. You want to take that money, go ahead. But in Colorado and in Tampa, those guys are eating up a lot of money too. But guess what they did? They got it done. It's not the money. It's not the allotment of the money. It's not that there's no money for anybody else. It's when you're handing out that money, you got to be the guys. The Tampa Bay Cups back-to-back, those guys were the ones scoring. It seemed like every goal. It was Stamkos, Kucherov, or Point, or Hedman.
Yeah, exactly. And it was clean in Colorado, right? McKinnon said, give me $100,000 more than McDavid for 8 years, and that's it. And I'm going to win a cup and be a captain and maybe be the best player ever here. And Makar said, just give me 8 years. I'm good. What is it, 9.5? Done. Sure. Here, it's always pulling teeth. It's always a battle. It's always an off-season distraction. And a lot of it is self-inflicted by the players. You can't blame the fans for that, or the media. No. It's their careers. They operate the way they operate.
You throw in one thing, too, is the comments from people like, it's easy for Nate McKinnon. He's won a Hart, but he's also won a cup.
Right, exactly.
So when, he's not shooting that's not Clayton Keller, from Arizona/Utah that's shooting from the hip there. It's McKinnon going, hey, you know what? Like, feel for him, see all the pressure out there. Well, McKinnon in Colorado, he's the guy. And they happen to have won because he was a big part of that. So it's easy to kind of help other people out when you've already been there. If McKinnon hadn't won and now he's 11 years in, he's probably keeping his mouth quiet.
Exactly.
I would say.
He's breathing easy, man. He's got his feet up. He's got a cup. He's got a heart. He's got the contract. He's breathing easy, and he's earned that. But that's the point. He's earned that. And I feel like the comments fall short because there also needs to be an understanding that it doesn't have to be that way. And you cannot be the best player if you don't get it done in the playoffs. Like you can't do that. And like I was doing a SportsCenter thing with Marty, and we're talking about goaltending tandems in the country, and Hellebuck and the Jets, and no one's disputing Hellebuck, best goalie in the country, probably the best goalie in the world. He's got to do some stuff in the playoffs though. Like he's got to be better than he has been the last 2 years. Like that should be expected. If you're going to be an upper echelon all-time great, how many all-time great goalies have not gone on deep runs or won cups? Like basically everyone. The players do it, the goalies do it, the coaches do it. If you want to break through that next level and be considered like all-time great, you have to have championship pedigree. You have to win.
And I don't think
it's mandatory in sports.
The conference final against Vegas 4 years ago, I don't know if that's...
And he was great in that run. He was phenomenal, Hellebuck, in that run. But you're right, that was 5 years ago.
It's what have you done for me lately? And that's really what you're right. Hellebuck, you could maybe a one-off where you don't have the numbers, but it has been a couple years in a row now. And Winnipeg has had expectations. They were a good team last year. Mm-hmm. They turned the corner. We thought they were going to be a mess. This time last year, actually a little bit before, when did Scheifele and Hellebuck sign their extension?
Right around now, Noodles. Yeah, right around now.
But a week before this, when we're sitting there going, geez, Winnipeg's in tough because they're probably going to do this, probably going to do that, and it ends up they turn the corner. But the expectations are there. And it'll be interesting. I don't know if you're reading out of New York there with the Rangers. Is Shesterkin looking for a ridiculous number?
Well, he is.
I saw 12.
I think he said
easy in Boston.
Well, Swayman, it sounds like they want him to accept 6 is what I've read and heard, and he's looking for 10. Which I don't know if that's true on either side. I would guess it's probably not, but it's probably closer to 6 for Boston and closer to 10 for Swayman. That's a huge gap. $4 million is a massive amount of money.
I've heard I'm just going off of Twitter, a bunch of people like apparently Swayman's looking for 9.5. It's like, holy crap.
Well, the only thing I would weigh in on that is I think Boston and Swayman would like to somehow kick that can down the road for 1 year. And the reason, and they won't be able to do it. They've got to sign him right away. But my point being is, we don't know what he is as a number one. Is he a 50-game starter? Is he a tandem guy? Is he a 60-game? Is he Demko? Is he Hellebuck? Is he going to be one of those guys and deserve to be paid in that next echelon? But we don't know it because he's been a tandem guy. He has the makings to be, I think, a really good one in this league. But he hasn't proven it yet. And I think Boston's going, okay, if you want something with an 8 or a 9 in it, man.
Well, you better be that guy. If you're making 9.5, you better play 62 games.
100%.
Like, you better be prepared to play.
Grant Fuhr, 72.
Like, a ton of games.
I agree.
And consistently for years. Like, you need, if it's an 8-year deal, you need to average like 58 starts a year if you want that kind of money. And
I know.
It's a big ask. Yet I think he's got some leverage.
Maybe it's like
there.
I'll go big and then maybe we meet in the middle. That's what I want.
That would be my guess. Generally, it works out that way. He'll sign for like 7.5, and he'll get a no trade and no move and all that. And
if he's
everyone will be happy.
What the hell is Shesterkin making?
Shesterkin, I think, is going to get 11 or 12 Noodles. I mean, I'll ask you, but like the bar is set. Is it Bob at 10 or 10.5, or Price was at 10.5?
Well, Price was 10.5. Bob's at 10.
He's going higher than that.
You're right. So again, cap going up, percentage of the cap, all of that. It might be a 12. They just better make sure. Like, he is their guy. I'll be honest. Yeah. I think he's a rock star. He's that good. A couple of years ago, he was damn near Hart type of. He was in the conversation, right? Like the Vezina was a lock, but he was sniffing Hart that year.
Yep.
But he didn't have a great year last year.
No,
that's
he didn't.
The thing.
Got it together in the playoffs, but
he did.
You're right.
He's a player, and I'm sure Chris Drury will get something done with him, but that number's going to be big. Like it might surprise you. Like he might say, and it might say $12 million a year. But he probably deserves it.
Well,
every executive I've talked to when a contract like that's coming up, they all say the same thing. They're like, look, I'm going to put the paper in front of them, and they can write down the giant number, but at the end of the day, that's what they're going to get, but we might not be good because it's just you're just handing over so much.
It is tough, man. I believe he's referenced like a percentage type of negotiation, which it's like if that's where the cap's going to be, I want 12.5% or whatever it is.
Right.
Do the math. All right, Struddy's coming up. We'll catch up with Jason Strudd. We'll get into this Facebook Marketplace scandal coming out of Edmonton, courtesy of Struddy. Get his update on that. We'll get into a number of things with Strudd. We've got a number of things to get to as well in terms of what DeMar DeRozan is saying. He's got a book coming out here, and he's doing the rounds on his time in Toronto.
Insane comments.
We'll play that. We'll get into it. And the Jays are in action. We've got role play level of concern coming up at 5:30. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Should see if FanDuel can place odds on how much stuff Struddy's selling on Facebook Marketplace in the Edmonton area.
Is he calling in from a bottle depot, or where's he at? Is he returning bottles today?
Like, I understand, like, some people that they're getting full value out of, like...
Yeah.
But I think Struddy's got a good life.
Right.
Why is he selling a shelf for $30?
A crooked one, too.
And one that, it's not worth $30. That's what's scary. You look at the shelf, you're like, that's not worth $30.
Let's take dibs on what he got for it. I'm going to say he got full pop.
He claims he had multiple offers.
No
That's
chance.
the thing.
I'll say 15. I'll say no one ended up picking it up. I'll go off. That's like the $1 on The Price is Right.
Now I'm going to change mine from 30 to 20. I think he got $20.
You say 20. I say no one ended up actually taking it.
I offered him $20 and a signed Jamie McLennan hockey card, and he refused it.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Are you saying full price? You're going to say 30? All right. Here's Jason Strudwick joining us here on Overdrive. Struddy, how much did he get for the shelf?
Okay, well, it's a long story, but the short part is it's still for sale.
I knew it. I told you. I knew it.
So, because of you guys, I had so many people write me, messing with me. They're like, "Hey, $10, you take me delivered to London, Ontario," and I was just snapping. I was like, "For you, it's $50." I became like the soup Nazi. I was losing it. So listen, I can sell. I like selling it. That's what it's worth. It's worth $30. And to all of your listeners that are going to write, don't waste my time. I'm a serious seller on the Facebook Marketplace. I'm getting the $30. I'll keep it forever. I will keep it forever. It's from a nice place called IKEA. It's $30 all day.
But I just don't understand. Like, I play this little trick where I'll drive and find a giant green dumpster, and that's where the shelf will go. Like, why don't you, do you really, so that $30, and I get it, sometimes you want to get what you think something's worth, whether it be $20, $30, but what is that $30 going to do for your life? Tell me.
But would you go to that same dumpster and just throw $30 into it? I've got a brick of gold sitting there worth $30, and I'm going to sell it. I'm going to get the full value. Like, I am not selling a dime less.
God, no one's bought the stupid thing yet. It's a piece of crap.
It's because if you guys met with me, tell me everyone it's worth $10, it's probably worth $35 or $37.
Yeah. Well, you should sign it, man. It'd be worth $32, $33 minimum.
See, the
minimum,
thing is,
Strud.
Struddy, and I told you this. Like, how if somebody buys it and you legitimately get $30 or $32 for it, because I could see you going, yeah, $32, and you would bring 2 loonies, or you'd bring change for a 5. But here's the thing. Are they coming to your house? Like, are you meeting them in a parking lot of a Salvation Army? Like, where are you going? Because I don't, I think that sometimes can be dangerous. Hayes, we were talking about that comedian who makes a joke. You put something on, what was it, Reddit or Facebook or something?
Marketplace, anything. Yeah, come by the house.
Yeah, you're inviting a murderer over.
Yeah, come on by and know where my children sleep for $5.
So I've got $30, Hayes.
$30, sorry.
So I've done a lot. Like, I sold a bike recently, and I met the guy, and I was a little bit nervous. He wanted to meet underneath the parking garage at West Hampton Mall.
Oh.
So I drove
Jesus
to the
Christ, dude, you can't go there.
So he gave me the nod. See, if anyone's been to West Hampton Mall, there's like a movie part, and it was like not the top layer or the underneath. It was the second level off the bottom. And I'm like, this is very specific. So I worked out that day, and I left, like, didn't have any loose clothing in case we had to get busy, in case I had to fight this guy off for this kid's bike. And I met him. He gave me the nod. We got out. It was consensual. You know, I released the bike. He gave me the wad of sweaty cash, and everyone was happy.
All right.
So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting setup.
That's a good story.
One guy, as soon as you say lower garage, I call the police.
Block.
And I report
And
you.
reports.
That's right.
Block and report. RCMP and the FBI.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Let me just guess. He had a grubby long beard and gross sweaty hands.
Well, I didn't hug him. Oh, I mean, I'm just giving money. Like he literally had me like, this is a pretty nice bike. I think I got like $200 to $300 if I remember correctly. Like that's a pretty big transaction on Facebook Marketplace.
All right,
Yeah,
I like
but
it.
also, do you know how many
insane,
like
man.
crimes have been committed at that garage, that specific garage at West Edmonton Mall? Like I believe I was like almost carjacked there once coming out of a movie. Like it's scary there sometimes when you're going to go underneath the parking lot in the dark area and meet a guy with dirt under his fingernails and come and harass you. It's just not worth it, Strutty. I'm telling you.
Here's what's worth it. You just get in a pickup truck, you put the hatch down, go on a bumpy dirt road and let it fly out the back, and you go home with your peace. You're at peace.
Yeah. He's got a passion for it. I
You know what,
appreciate
though?
that.
I don't want to out him, but he did tell me he sold a chainsaw for $15 or something like that.
I put the chainsaw up, and the guy writes me, he's like, is this price for real? Like right away, within 5 minutes. Like I knew I priced it right. And so I wrote back, I'm like, are you saying it's too little or too much? He's like, no, it's way too little. I'm like, no, 15's the price. He's like, that's a great deal. I'm on my way. And sure enough, he came over, $15. And there was a couple toonies in there, but I took it. Like, I was so happy because I'll never use the chainsaw. I never
love that.
My neighbor gave it to me, and I don't know how to use it. Like, I didn't know how to fire it up, so I got it. This guy's happy. I actually got a note back. Hey, the chainsaw works really well. Because I did put as is in the deal as
Wow,
well.
look at
As
you.
is.
You asked for reviews. Hey, if you could review my profile on Facebook Marketplace, that would go a long way for the Jason Strudwick Incorporation. I love it. Well, Strud, I'm glad we reviewed that, and I'm glad that we established exactly what's happening out there.
Yeah,
I fear for your
disgusting.
safety.
You're disgusting.
You're really starting to push your luck out there with parking lots and stuff, but we wish you nothing but success. What's the vibe like out there? We mentioned you yesterday when McDavid showed up. McDavid was, he was saying positive things about Edmonton, right, Noodles? You were speaking as our resident Edmontonian, like, hey, it's an easy life. It's 20 minutes everywhere you want to go, no traffic, all that kind of stuff. And is everyone basically just breaking down every word McDavid says, trying to get a read on his future now that Draisaitl's signed long term?
Well, I think it goes back to Leon. So when Leon spoke, I'd never heard him speak that positively about anything. And not that he's a negative guy, but he's pretty reserved, right, when he gets into it. And he was talking about this city that was amazing. He loves playing there. I'm like, I got to move there. Like, I love this city. Then I realized he was talking about Edmonton. Like, it was such a positive endorsement for the city. And so to have him come and say he couldn't imagine putting another jersey on, and he wanted to be here, and what they've built is special. And I think he was so right on so many levels. And then you get to McDavid, and I am of the belief there's no way those two haven't talked, and they don't know what the other one was going to do. I would be blown away if Connor doesn't sign here next year. Because if you're Leon, obviously you want to play with your best friend, but you also, or one of your good buddies, you also want to play with good players. Right, that's a big thing, playing with really good players. And Connor is, if not the best, he's, the top two best players in the league. So for Leon to sign on like that makes me very comfortable thinking that he will choose the same. Connor will say that the same. And he kind of said, he goes, listen, I'm not going to answer this question all year long. And quite frankly, I don't think he needs to. He addressed it maybe once actually when training camp starts and says, hey, I'm not talking about this anymore. We're here to play. We're here to try to have some success and hopefully get a little further than they did last year in the final.
Strud, I think the fans, like the Oiler fan base, I think they've got to be over the moon. Like to hear Connor McDavid talk about like just the easygoing lifestyle and how he quite enjoys it, going to the Stanley Cup Finals, Leon Draisaitl just locked in long term. I'm sure it looks like Connor's going to do the same thing. with all that's been going on with young kids saying no to Winnipeg, or I don't want to play here, or I don't like it there, it's too cold, I think everybody in oil country has just got to be fired up going into this season, because I'm sure there was a time where everybody thought, oh, there's Tampa Bay out there. Everyone's talking about taxes and what Vegas is doing. And I'm sure people in Edmonton had a bit of a complex about it, saying, do these guys really want to stay here? And they've proven that it's the place they want to be, and I couldn't be happier for Edmonton fans.
Yeah, so obviously I'm a little biased, but let's just take it through what it used to be like here in Edmonton and when we all played. You'd arrive in Edmonton from playing from Vancouver or Calgary at, let's say after midnight, and you had a 40-minute drive from an airport to downtown Edmonton. If it's minus 30, it didn't look that good. And you'd stay at no disrespect to these hotels in Edmonton, but they weren't really that good compared to others you stay at. And then you'd go from that rink or that hotel downtown and drive 15, 20 minutes to one of the worst, if not the worst, rink in the NHL and play against a poor team. And that was their impression of it. Now, you still have the drive-in, but now you have a great hotel right beside a state-of-the-art arena. And not that it's better than the best ones in the league, but it's right up there with the best ones. You have an incredible team. Last year in the playoffs, the fans were incredible. I think that the city looked really good, and the fans, the way that they supported the team, the noise, even players from other teams commented on what it was like. So it's a much different experience. But make no mistake, having top players and winning goes a long way. That's how they got Arvidsson. That's how they got Skinner. That's how they got Brown to come back. That's how they got Henrique to come back on a different number than maybe people expected. That makes a big difference. But it all adds up. I can't tell you which one's most important, maybe the winning, but it all adds up. So now, everything's in place. The offer sheet wasn't ideal. Those two offer sheets kind of handicapped them a little bit, but now they got to figure out how to fix, maybe adjust, get some younger players in the organization. But, you have your top player lined up. You're hoping to get the other top player lined up. That's something I think the Oilers fans can live with as they figure out the rest as they go on.
Strud, that's where I was going to. Outside of the offer sheet and that, we had Stan Bowman on, was it last week, and he was talking about, his message to his organization saying, last year is last year. You can't just expect to drop the puck and have the exact same success, exact same chemistry, because there's different players in that room. Taking a look at the players that are different in that room, would you say, it's a lateral move? Is the team better? Is there some work to do? I'm looking at the back end, especially. That's your forte. What do you make of that back end? And do you think there is some room for improvement there as the season goes on?
I think that short term, they're way better financially because they have freedom to make moves, right? Obviously, it sounds like Kane might start on LTIR, but they now have the flexibility after trading CC. They don't have to make a trade during the season to get cap space and then to bring someone back. They have the flexibility and two assets in the draft picks from the offer sheets to have that flexibility. But I think there is high expectations for Broberg to play either second or third pair right side. Now they don't have Broberg, and they don't have CC, and they don't have Desharnais. So it's a challenge on that back end. We know Nurse is there, Ekholm, and Bouchard. Those are your top 3 of 4. But they don't have the fourth. They've traded for Emberson, who, give him an opportunity. Maybe he can play in that top 4 spot. It'd be interesting. Troy Stetcher, I think we know where he's at. I don't know that he's an every night 20-minute guy on a Stanley Cup winning team, but he'll get a chance. Josh Brown, I see a lot of myself in him. I think he's a 6'7", so I don't think he's really an option there. So I think that second spot right D is going to be dealt with in a significant way at some point in the season if it's not solved internally. And I think that honestly there'll probably be a trade. They'll have to bring it. But up front, I think they're better. I think Skinner and Arvidsson beside Draisaitl. Then you got Henrique at the 3C. Is it Brown? I don't know who I'd like to see Dylan Holloway there. He's obviously not around anymore. But I think they're better up front and deeper. And I'm not even talking about Evander Kane, who knows where his injury and all that's how it's going to play out. But they have a lot of options, including putting Nugent Hopkins at center. If they want to move Henrique up to the wing. But options are nice to have as you go through it. But I'll go circle back. It's that four spot, the right shot D that I really think they have to figure out in a serious way. If they they want to have the same push they did last year, deep in the playoffs.
With Jason Strudwick.
Struddy, do you think with the Broberg situation, like this guy hasn't done a lot? Do you think he was worth that offer sheet from what you saw, just that little kind of spike in the playoffs? Would you have done that?
I was advocating for him all the time. I love the idea of what he is. Big and can skate.
But would you have thrown that offer sheet at him?
No, I wouldn't. This is why. He is a player who's essentially been a minor league player just because of opportunity. There haven't been opportunity here for him with the Oilers. But now he's going from a guy who, oh man, he can play. He's making $1 million to all of a sudden now $4.5 million, and the expectations are high. Those expectations are 20 minutes a night and points. Like, what is it, 30, 40 points, somewhere in there for a $4.5 million D-man. And he hasn't had the chance to work up to that, right? You look at some of these guys, like a Brock Faber signed a pretty big deal, but he's had his year in the NHL, and he kind of knows he can play. We don't know if Broberg can play. So my concern for him is, can he handle that going up? Because I guarantee when four guys were playing golf in St. Louis and they saw the offer sheet come in, they're like, oh, great, who the hell's Phil Broberg? I don't think half the people in St. Louis knew who he was. So it comes with pressure and expectations he hasn't had to deal with. So, yeah, I think he could be a player, but I think those expectations at $4.5 million is going to be a challenge. That being said, he couldn't walk away from that contract. He's going to get maybe $2, maybe $3 million in the next 2 years here total. Someone offers you $9 million, you take it. You cannot walk away from that.
Absolutely. Another thing I think Edmonton has going for them is the division that they play in, where San Jose is going to be terrible again. Anaheim will be terrible. I don't think Calgary is going to be very good. I don't think Seattle's done enough to get back into the dance. So I'm curious, Strud, when you look at the Pacific, the top four last year, Vancouver, Edmonton, Los Angeles, Vegas, do you think they have a better chance, those four teams, of remaining in the top four in their division than the top four in the Atlantic, Florida, Boston, Toronto, Tampa? Which top four, the Atlantic division or the Pacific division, do you think has a better chance of replicating the top four spots like they did last year?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Pacific. I think that's when you look at it, I think it's just too many clear-cut rebuilding teams. And I like some of the moves San Jose has done. Anaheim maybe got a little work to do, but those teams, I don't know how they're going to push through past these other teams. Like Vancouver, I'm worried about the goaltending with the what's going on with Demko and company. I think we know where Calgary's going to be, and maybe they even move a couple other pieces out to keep getting stockpiling young prospects. So I think it's clear in the Pacific Division. And then you're also playing against some of those teams, so maybe there's a few more easier night on the old bingo card. So yeah, I'm going to go Pacific Division on that one for sure.
Strud, it's nothing against San Jose, but I just want to ask you, if you were in tip-top like game shape and you showed up and you just said you were some guy from Sweden, do you think you make the San Jose Sharks right now?
Maybe not this year. Last year, there was a stretch where I was like, I think I'm a better option than most of the players out there on forward and D, on both. And that's no disrespect to those guys. It was just unfair. You had so many injuries. You're trying to fight and compete. I've been on bad teams. It's not fun. When you look over and you're penciled in as the number 2 defenseman, and on the other side it's Seabrook and Keith, you're like, I'm not as good as those guys, and they know it. So they try for 30 seconds and beats you 3-1, right? Like, it's not good. So I think San Jose there was an improvement. What is Askarov going to bring, and what are his opportunity to kind of compete in that environment, in that team? And he got what he wanted. He's going to be the number 1, but it's just sometimes it's just so. I hope for San Jose Sharks fans that was rock bottom, because I don't know what's below that. Like, that is really, really low if you go below that, what we saw last year.
Yeah, that was Chicago White Sox level of hockey. Like, that's how bad it was. They were horrendous.
I mean, it wasn't their Stanley Cup when they beat Edmonton and Jay Woodcroft and Charlie Manson were walking across the ice, and you're reading his lips, and he's going, I think that's it for us.
We're done. Check, please.
Yeah.
Like, that
right.
wasn't even a calendar year ago, guys. That wasn't even a calendar year ago that there was chaos in Edmonton.
Wasn't that in November?
It was a November
I think it was in October
game.
or early November at best. Yeah, at best. Because it was
crazy.
game 10 or 11.
At that time. Yeah, well, you look at that. I mean, last year they came in the cup or bust talk, the captain's case, which we should say every team has those. But I think there was so much intensity. They were trying to win the Stanley Cup September 15th. And I think this team, the Oilers team with new players, will have learned that it's a long, long, long year. And I think that it will see a different team that's maybe deeper and able to play a more sustainable game, just game in, game out, where you know you're the better team. We come out and we do what we need to do to kind of get there. So I'm really interested in the start of the year for the Oilers. What do they do and how do they kind of get out of the gate? I don't think they have to win the President's Trophy, but they obviously can't start like they did last year.
All right, Strud. Keep us posted on that beautiful piece of cabinetry out there. We want to know where it goes, how much money you get, and we'll break that down next time you're on.
I'll take a selfie with the guy who buys it, guy or gal.
Yes.
Guy or gal, because I think it's a nice piece. It's a nice piece.
It's a nice piece.
What if
Good
you
luck
drop
with
it down to $27.50?
I'm not, buddy. It's worth $30. I've been told by some $32, $33 is the value.
Okay. You can't mess around with that. It's like a pawn shop out
Dude,
there.
if you get one of those guys
pesos.
over to your house that works on those shows that gives you the value of your antiques to look at that shelf,
That'd be great.
dude,
Yeah, what is
I'll
that
die a happy man.
show?
Yeah.
Antique Roadshow. I love that. My dream is to find something and go on that show. And you guys will see me with this beautiful cabinetry. Like this was in Abraham Lincoln's office. It's worth $10,000. I'll go crazy.
Yeah.
And I'll try to sell it on Facebook Marketplace as well.
Right. Get the evaluation and then screw them. You're doing it yourself. I love it. All right, Struddy. See you, buddy. Jason Strudwick. He's an entrepreneur. Struddy's an entrepreneur, and he will not be pushed off his number. I have a great appreciation for that.
I just don't want to come in contact with a stranger for $30. It's not worth it.
Do you know how much you'd have
In
to
a
pay me
parkade.
to go to Yorkdale and drop something off to somebody?
In the second
In
lower
the
second level?
lower second after dark Yorkdale.
Dude, I would
No
drive
chance.
0.7 kilometers in front of Toys R Us and drop it in the cement and say, that's where it is. Go
Right.
grab it if you want it. I
Right.
would never meet anyone.
I know that parkade very well. I've been in a fist fight in that parkade outside after late night in a bar after a bar.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was, we go downstairs there because there's privacy, and you get into a tilt. Like Struddy's taking his life into his hands.
I
there.
know.
It's ridiculous.
Crazy, man. It's I guess it's a big thing. JP just said he's moving and shaking as well on Marketplace. Got all these entrepreneurs we work with.
What are you selling, JP? Video games?
Yeah, I have a couple of retro or vintage kind of video game consoles and games. So
Okay.
I meet them a block away. I tell
right.
them where to go and then meet them there and, walk around my neighborhood a little bit.
What kind of like vetting system do you do though? Like, do you have to vet who this
I mean,
person
before
is?
you answer, I know exactly what he does. He just looks at the profile pic. That's all he does.
It's not much of a vetting system, but it's just,
Yeah.
Conversation for a little bit. Just make sure everything seems up and up with them. And that's
Okay. All right, JP. All right, man. That's like you at Al's Brothers on the hockey card circuit. Al's brother will meet you in a parking lot somewhere to sell you like a Lindros rookie card. He'll do that anytime you're available, whenever you're ready. Meet at Yorkdale, Fairview, any of the malls around the city. Al's brother will be there. JP evidently too. All right. Overdrive continues. We got Dregs coming up. Darren Dreger in about 20 minutes from now. Steve Weich of the NFL Network as well in about an hour and a half. Role play level of concern at 5:30. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, role play level of concern coming up in about 40 minutes. Darren Dreger will join us as well. We're talking about Jeremy Swayman, his situation. There's a number of RFAs who are still looking for new deals. And we'll get into the Leaf news with Dregs. Pat's ready on a PTO. Yanni Hakanpää. The long-awaited Yanni Hakanpää signing has arrived. 1 year at $1.4 million. And the likelihood of, Easton Cowan, Fraser Minton, any other kids that are looking that could possibly find a spot on this Maple Leaf roster.
How the Leafs are approaching, or what the game plan is for Easton Cowan, I'm kind of curious about. Like, just what kind of shot is he going to get? Because it's a curious case with a young guy like that that's talented. I did the same thing. It's like you're going to play on a third line with some secondary power play time, or you're going to get a shot with the big boys, which is like real deal stuff. And you got to be good every night, which is a big time challenge. I don't care how good he was in junior.
Oh, it's a huge ask. Like if you're playing any shifts with 34, it's like you better be prepared or get out of the way.
And not just about them. It's like you're getting Barkov. You're getting the best of the best on every other team every single night.
Right. Yeah, you're playing the best players.
I say they just give him a realistic shot, and let him play his way onto the team, or they feel he's not ready. But give him an honest shot, but give him an opportunity to settle in where they think he can play as well too.
He's generally Noodle's going to dictate where he's going to play anyway.
Agreed. Yeah. 100%.
Yep, that's usually the way it goes. And he's highly touted there, right? It's not some kid that they're not familiar with that shows.
Yeah.
Because those stories have happened. Like, they know them. It's like, oh, that was a 4th-round pick from a couple years ago, and he just has an unreal camp. And you're like, watch out. Where did this guy come from? Cabriolet was a guy like that. It was like a 6th-round pick or something. He showed up at camp. 8th round, exactly. And I think Pat Quinn was kind of like Bobby McMahon. But yes. But McMahon wasn't with the camp. Like, you're right, Bobby McMahon. Though.
You got his name right today, and I love it. And we're moving in the right direction.
We are moving in the right direction. All right, hour 2 coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.